Hey, so today I want to talk about how to find and fix keyword cannibalization issues. But I want to start by saying that keyword cannibalization is all about intent. There's lots of misconceptions around what keyword cannibalization actually is. And I want to start by debunking a myth. I want to look at what the most common definition of keyword cannibalization is, and then I want to challenge it. So, what we commonly see when we hear keyword cannibalization being talked about is that having more than one page with the same keyword target confuses the search engines and prevents either page ranking as well as it could. Well, I want to challenge this. There's far more to it than that. Keyword cannibalization isn't just as simple as saying there are two pages here targeting the same search term. So, what is it? Where do we start? Well, you need to consider the intent of your content. And that's where you need to start looking for keyword cannibalization issues. And to give an example of this, let's look at the UK SERPs for Ultra HD TV. Here we see two URLs ranked from the same domain, argos.co.uk. So let's look at what these pages are. Well, the first of these, we see essentially a catch-all 4K Ultra HD page. We see some insights on what is a 4K TV. We see brands, accessories, essentially your typical pillar page. It's an informational page. The intent here is to learn more about 4K TVs, look at some of the options and start to, understand what your options are in more depth when shopping at a higher level. People who landed on this page typically aren't ready to buy right now. They're in the research phase. So then when we look at the second result that ranks, this is essentially just the 4K Ultra HD TV filter page on their televisions category. This is a page with transactional intent. When somebody lands here, they pretty much know what product they're looking for and they're ready to explore the options on pricing on different brands. They're not here to learn whether this Ultra HD TV, 4K TV is right for them. And that's a thing that we really need to latch onto here. The intent of these pages is different. They serve a different purpose. And what we can take from this is that multiple pages targeting the same search term on its own isn't keyword cannibalization, unless the intent of these pages is the same. If Argos had two informational pages optimized for Ultra HD TV, that's a very, very different scenario. But what we saw there was an informational page and a transactional page. Because when you have these like-for-like pages, you are competing against yourself. And trust me, nobody wants to be doing that. So then what do Google say? Well, John Mueller in the past has said that if you have a bunch of pages with roughly the same content, let's latch on to here that he said roughly the same content, not targeting the same keywords, it's going to compete with each other. Kind of like a bunch of kids wanting to be first in line and ultimately someone else slips in ahead of them. Personally, I prefer fewer, stronger pages over lots of weaker ones. Don't water your site's value down. Pages with roughly the same content. There's no mention here on two or more pages targeting the same keywords. Because as we've seen with Argos, if they're targeting a different intent, then the content isn't the same. Let's consider this as we start to look at how we find and fix these issues. And an example I want to give throughout here is for a project that we've worked on for a couple of years where we had a severe cannibalization issue that goes beyond what we may initially assume to be the case. So let's look at the category breakdown when we started working on this site. These guys sell refurbished, remodeled phones. And we saw the main category of iPhones. Okay, fine, the intent there is somebody searching for queries around refurbished iPhone, that sort of thing. Then we saw a subcategory 1, which was targeting iPhone XS and XS Max together. We saw a second subcategory that broke it down into the model, in that instance, the XS. And then we saw a product page, again, going into the iPhone XS. Now, let's have a look at some of these. So here was the sort of, subcategory 1, showing the XS and the XS Max. We then go down to show just the XS, and then we hit the, in theory, the product page. So we had a keyword cannibalization issue here on the grounds that the same intent was coming across, essentially three of these 4 category pages. And when you have multiple pages that compete for the same keywords, where the intent is the same, that's when you have a problem. So you've got to start asking which pages should rank, which page is best for the users, which page is going to convert or help the user, help the searcher to answer their query. Because when you're serving multiple different pages with the same intent, what you're effectively asking the search engines to do is choose this for themselves based on the various signals available. But keyword cannibalization can go way beyond, just this example of this conflict. You may find that the wrong page is ranking for a keyword as a result of weak content on landing pages or conflicting signals, including internal linking. The example we see here, which, when we started working on this project, a blog post from 2011 was ranking for sell broken phone. Well, there's no intent to really. This should and now is a page that encourages, it helps people to actually sell that phone. It has the options to get the valuation, that sort of thing. But a blog post from 2011, which was, let's face it, not very good at all, isn't the right intent. But all of the signals on the site were pointing to the fact that this was the best page to sell broken phones. I don't actually believe there was a better page targeting at that stage. But keyword cannibalization can also happen at metadata level of product variations. In this instance, again, another project that we've worked on is one product that's typically sold in 3 separate colors: pink, red, and blue. Now, if we ran a search originally, there was the pink pram was every single time was appearing for a search for Silver Cross Pioneer Dolls pram. Why? Again, all the signals pointed to this. But, understanding the intent here and that something was missing, in this instance, a catch-all category. We'll get onto that in a moment. So let's now look at how you can find these keyword cannibalization issues. What are your options for finding them? Well, start by considering when there's multiple pages that rank for a keyword. That if you see a ranking URL continually changing in the SERPs, if you see the main page continually fluctuating in rank, again, it could be another signal that you have a cannibalization issue. Well, sometimes you might find that you're actually struggling to increase rankings for the key search terms that you're targeting, that in theory you should be ranking for, but whatever you do, you can't get that to increase. Or in many instances, it could be simply that the wrong page is ranking. Google is understanding, Google and the other search engines are understanding that, the signals are pointing to the wrong page and that you're not serving that best intent page. So how do we actually find them? There's some of the issues and some of the things to look for that could signal an issue. So head to Ahrefs, put your domain through and head to the organic keywords tool. And essentially when you expand out, you will see the position history. All these different colors are different URLs that have ranked for this query. If you see something like this, the URLs are below. If you see something like this, there's a pretty good indication that you've got a cannibalization issue. SEMrush has another great tool. Again, in their position tracking tool, you will see cannibalization issues, affected keywords and cannibal pages. Again, it can be great to help you understand where these issues are and what they could be. Simply running a site search for your domain alongside the keyword will show the pages that are deemed relevant for that search query. Again, start to look and consider the intent. If you're serving multiple pages with the same intent, this could signal that you've got a cannibalization issue. And then Google Search Console, head into Search Console, head into the, into the query report to pages for a certain query, and you'll see all the different URLs that have received clicks and impressions for that query. Again, if you start to see, sizable numbers of impressions and potentially clicks, again, it can show that the URLs are switching in and out. And again, you'll see that on the timeline chart. And then a really, really great tool, which I talk about all the time, Hannah Butler's Cannibalization Explorer that you can find linked to there on the strategic site. Go and take a look at that tool. It can save you many, many hours when essentially looking at how to fix these cannibalization issues. So we've looked at what cannibalization is. We've looked at how to find the issues. So how do you fix them? What are your options here? Well, it's really important to understand that there is no one-size-fits-all solution here. Even within your site, there could be multiple different types of cannibalization, could be multiple different things causing these issues. And you need to consider the circumstances. What's causing the cannibalization, and make the decision almost in isolation on specific issues. So consider them individually. Don't try and apply a site-wide solution, because in most cases they probably won't exist. So your first option is to 301 redirect your cannibalized pages. But the things you need to be asking here is, are all of the cannibalizing pages needed? If the answer is no, then you can remove those that aren't the best match, aren't the best intent, and 301 redirect these to essentially your canonical page, considering traffic, visibility, and links to help you determine which page you should be redirecting to. But don't forget to update internal links when you do this, otherwise you could still be sending conflicting signals. Canonicalization, again, if for whatever reason you do need to keep 2 or more of these pages, common scenarios of PPC landing pages, CMS restrictions, then consider canonicalization. In this case, all of the pages will still exist, but the equity will be transferred to that single canonical URL. But again, be clear on which of your primary page, which your primary page should be here, which page you should be canonicalizing the others to. Reoptimizing pages, often, a pretty simple one. And, whilst there is more to cannibalization than two pages targeting the same keyword, if it's just at metadata level, often re-optimizing pages to set clear variations. This often happens at product level, as an example. That can really help to solve this issue. If the on-page elements are near identical or identical, then don't try and go too deep. Re-optimizing the metadata of these pages can often be a great solution. You can then consider merging or consolidating pages together. And if you have 2 weak pages which compete on intent, then you could consider merging these. Create one stronger page from 2 or more weaker pages. And this can also work when you want to move sections of content from page B into page A. Let's say you've got pages with different intent, but there are sections. It can often work just merging sections of that content. You're essentially taking one section out of one page and placing it or working it into another. And then creating subcategories. Again, one of the examples I shared was for an e-commerce retailer where we had essentially 3 different color variants, and one of those variants was ranking for essentially the product term. There were 3 variations of that. And if product variations are cannibalizing each other on an e-commerce store, consider whether a range subcategory is needed. The example I gave was the pink version of the Silver Cross Pioneer Dolls pram. So the solution to that was to create a page which aligned to the intent. If someone is searching for that, they're not essentially signaling what color they're looking for. They might know the different color options that exist. So we created a subcategory page for Silver Cross Pioneer Dolls pram that served the 3 different colorway options and the accessories to better match that intent. So to wrap up, let's look at keyword cannibalization fixes in action. So, as I mentioned before, we previously had these, multiple subcategories where we actually removed them, and we 301 redirected them into the main product page. So as of now, you click straight from the main iPhones grid, which again, that makes sense. If someone's looking for a refurbished iPhone, what does that mean? Are they looking for an 11 Pro? They're looking for a 10S, a 10S Max? Nobody knows. That intent is essentially at that higher level. The issue we had was that we then had essentially 3 pages targeting the iPhone XS. They now click straight into the product page, and essentially we've removed the cannibalization issue as a result of that. 2 subcategories removed and 301 redirected to the product page. Not a massively complex fix that was able to be rolled out pretty quickly. And let's consider here what happened beyond just SEO. It improved the user experience. it, went from there being 3 clicks into that product to there being 1 click into that product. And it also resolved cannibalization issues that were caused due to duplicate intent. So what does the performance look like? Well, you can see here when the fixes were rolled out, and we've started to see things improve. We're a long way off. There's other work to be done on the site. But looking at this from, when the fixes were rolled out to what we're seeing now, we're starting to see things along the right lines. But we've also massively improved the user experience as a result, and removed those, URLs that, we can carefully, and confidently say were competing against each other on intent. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much. Feel free to reach out on Twitter if you have any questions. Thank you very much.